Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JD's NASCAR and Sports Podcast. This week, we're going to recap the All-Star race, the All-Star Open, and then look forward to probably the second biggest race of the year in the Coke 600. Thank you all for listening. I really appreciate it. Please continue to listen, subscribe, rate, and review. And I've also got some t-shirts that we're selling now that are available for purchase. If you just want to get with me on my Facebook page, I know several of you all have liked that. DM me or on my personal Facebook or on Twitter and get those. They're $19.99 and they're really nice. I've posted them on all my pages. You can go look. And once again, thank you all for listening and thank you all for continuing to support me. I'm going to go ahead and get right into the All-Star Open. And this was the race that people were racing their way in. If you hadn't won the race in the last 2 years, you go to the Open, and then the top two from the Open go into the All-Star race. And those two were Ty Gibbs and Josh Berry, as predicted on here last week. And also Noah Gragson got in with the fan vote, which was also predicted, so I'll give myself a pat on the back for that. But early, Ty Gibbs really dominated the beginning of the Open. Lap 41, there was finally a caution. There, Josh Berry took the lead. Of course, that caution there on lap 41 was the competition caution, which means that they could get tires on their cars, especially at an older, worn-out track like North Wilkesboro. That's really important. And everybody pitted, got tires, and Josh Berry came out on front. So, after the restart, Noah Gragson gets into the inside wall and collects several people. Collect himself, Newman, Todd Gilliland, and Chandler Smith. And all those people were having pretty good runs. And, of course, Noah was still able to continue and get into the All-Star race. But that inside pit wall was a concern. And it came to fruition in the Open, as that could have been a lot worse than it was. NASCAR, I'll be honest, probably got lucky with that wreck wasn't worse and ended up with worse damage. Noah looks like had just misjudged it there getting into turn one and ended up collecting himself and about 5 other people. So that was pretty wild stuff. And then the entertainment continued. On the restart after that caution, Ty Gibbs moves Michael McDowell up into Justin Haley, which ended up spinning out Justin Haley and put a lot of damage on Michael McDowell's cars. He ended up pounding the wall pretty hard. And, if you're going to fault anybody there, you fault Ty Gibbs. But All-Star Open, these guys are trying to race their end to run for $1 million. And he went for it, full send right into it, and ended up costing Michael McDowell and Justin Haley their days. But I thought, McDowell said in his post-race that somebody had to get the bad end of the stick, and this time it was him, So when Ty Gibbs goes back around the track and McDowell's waiting on him, put Ty Gibbs down into almost the inside wall, giving up the lead. And therefore Berry took the lead and didn't look back. But I thought it was very interesting that Michael McDowell didn't get penalized or anything for that. As much as NASCAR tried to insert themselves into things. Maybe they're going back to the boys have at it philosophy where, maybe they're going to let drivers handle it on the track after they find Denny. But McDowell forced Gibbs down and opened the door up for Berry to take the win in the All-Star Open. So the Open was pretty entertaining. I'm not going to lie. It was actually pretty good. Honestly, more entertaining than the All-Star race itself. But I love the Open every year. I think that's a great event to have. That's really good racing most of the time, even at bad tracks such as Texas, But it was really good at Charlotte when they used to do it at Charlotte, and it's always really good racing. The All-Star race I went to in Bristol, even Michael McDowell had an issue with Bubba Wallace there and turned him into the wall too. Now I think about it. So always interesting stuff that happens in the Open. That's one thing with All-Star Weekend that I never want to change, and I don't think it will. I think they'll always have guys trying to race their way into the All-Star main event, and that's always awesome to see. And also the fan vote is another cool thing that they do for All-Star Weekend. Noah Gragson won it this year. And so a car that, didn't have it all in speed and then definitely after the damage after his wreck, but, still gets to compete for his sponsors, for his fans that voted for him online, So that was awesome to see as well. Now on to the main event. Pre-race atmosphere, you could tell on TV, was just something amazing. It reminded me of, Darlington last week when they introduced the 75 greatest drivers. Felt like it was that type of energy, NASCAR, well, at least the Cup Series hasn't been to North Wilkesboro since 1996. And the turnaround from even 2019 that they have done to that place is really awesome. And you could feel that even on the broadcast, and I'm sure being there was even more crazy. But, the on-track product was fine. I don't think it was good, but I don't think it was bad either. But definitely just a A+ for event. I'll give it probably a C for the racing product, but I think that'll get better as we go back, and I think they will go back. I hope they do, and I expect them to, whether it's for an all-star or a points-paying race. In my opinion, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Could be controversial opinion. I think it needs to come back as a points race. Put all 36 cars out there and let you go. I think it would be great. Denny was talking to yesterday on his podcast, maybe change the tire, make it softer. That way there's more tire wear. People can manage their tires on these long runs, and that's when you get really good racing, especially on short tracks, is when people can manage their tires. There's not the same amount of fall off for every car. That would be awesome to see. And I think, Goodyear's done a good job, even from last year, switching things, making the racing more competitive, the tires better. The tires seem to last a lot better than they did last year. So I could definitely see that happening, and I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say that North Wilkesboro needs a points race starting next year, just a regular season race. I don't really know what you do with the All-Star race then, but that's something that could be determined. You could put the All-Star race at the Clash, because the Clash is a good event, and it's a good kickstart out there in LA, but the attendance was down this year compared to the first year they did it. Views were down, viewership-wise. But that's you can't do a points race at the Coliseum because the track's too small. But All-Star race there, I could see that working, and I think the atmosphere at North Wilkesboro just proves that they deserve a points-paying race there. So that's my opinion on that. Now, getting into the All-Star race, which, as I said earlier, wasn't the best on-track product, but still was pretty cool, just the environment in general. Started out with Eric Jones getting into Ricky Stenhouse. Basically there was one line there all night long. So if anybody tried to go up top, try to come back down, you're not going to get down easily, and I think that's really what happened to Ricky. His car kind of drifted up top, and he tried to get back down real quick, and Jones was there already. Ricky wasn't clear, and spun him, took him out. At the beginning of the race, I thought Denny was going to run away with this thing. And, he was the favorite coming in. So it wasn't a surprise, but the short run speed that he had at the beginning of the race, and I don't know what happened after, because after the beginning, his car went away, but the beginning of the race, I thought it was going to be Suarez and Denny competing for this thing, and that changed after the first set of pit stops for sure. I don't know if they made a bad change or what happened, but then a couple, I know Reddick and Larson were the two main ones that pitted on that first caution very early. And, of course, Larson drove from the back to the front. It felt like super quick because there was a long run and nobody had pitted besides those guys. And Larson just made it look easy. And at North Wilkesboro with those fresh tires, it was pretty much a cakewalk for him to get through those guys. And once he got out there, he was not looking back. It was pure domination, a pure butt whooping on Larson's side, and he won the truck race also. So you got a Larson sweep this weekend. I'm sure my Kyle Larson fans that listen love that, and he's coming into his own. Struggled a little bit last year with the next gen. He still won a couple races, but that's kind of hard to say struggled. But for his standards, struggled, and I think that they've got that back now. He's 3 short track wins, Richmond, Martinsville, and now at North Wilkesboro in the Cup side. Just won at Darlington in the Xfinity Series, then wins at North Wilkesboro in the trucks. This guy's rolling. And that's dangerous for the rest of the field to let him get hot, because once he gets hot, it's going to be harder to stop him. I mean, this weekend at Charlotte, look for him to be really, really fast and really good. I know that's not a shock to anyone, but last year he went through, he spun out. His back where the gas can is on the car literally caught on fire. He worked himself all the way back to the front there at the end before the restart where Denny ended up winning. But man, that car was a rocket ship at Charlotte last year, so I don't expect any fall off from him this weekend going into Charlotte. Real quick before I move on to this week's race, I wanted to mention that Logano, Ross, and Christopher Bell all had pit road issues also. And also want to touch on the fact that Ross didn't get into anyone this week, which was, I know it's a non-points paying race, but maybe he got the message. That's just a thought that I had. But Logano was, he's got a knack for winning these first-time events, and you thought, he started up front, ran pretty decent, and just kind of disappeared there at the end, so that's disappointing for him. But I also think that all 3 of those guys will get their mojo back this weekend. Trackhouse last year, I'm going to go ahead and put them as my team to beat this weekend. And Suarez and Chastain. Last year, just crazy speed, and ended up not winning, but I expect them this weekend to be my team to beat there in Charlotte. That might shock some people, to be honest with you. They've been good, but not race winning. I would say Chastain was at Darlington before he had his mistake. But I'm going to go ahead and list Trackhouse as my team to beat. I'm actually going to be in Charlotte this weekend for the race, so I'm really excited about that. This will be my first Coke 600 since I was 3 years old. I actually lived in Mooresville when I was 2 or 3 years old, and that's how I got into NASCAR. I was raised on it. My parents, they got me into it early, and I haven't looked back since. I've been obsessed with it ever since then. So I actually went to a race in the womb. So my first race was at Bristol, I guess, technically. That's pretty wild if you think about it. It's been nonstop since then. My kid is now into it now, and he's obsessed with it. So I'm going to take him to Charlotte, see what he thinks about it. I took him to Bristol and Nashville last year, and both was a success. He's asked to go back to Bristol several times. So we're going to go check out Charlotte, see some of the shops there, and just have a good time. And I think that the racing will be amazing. Last year, the Coke 600 was the best race of the year, in my opinion. Kind of ironic that Denny won. Yes, I know, but I just mean the racing product. Before Denny was even in contention, it was just crazy good racing. So I think this has a chance to be right up there with the Kansas of this year and the Coke 600 of last year. So I'm really hoping for a great race, and I fully expect it. This is second biggest race of the year. A lot of people will be tuned in. It's sold out for the second year in a row. So it's going to be packed, going to be a packed house, and should be amazing racing. I'm going to take a break for a minute from previewing the Coke 600, and I forgot to cover one thing. Bubba Wallace trolling people. That's something that I like. This weekend at North Wilkesboro, very, very loud boos. Little controversial, but, he's doing what I think needs to be done. I like this new side of Bubba that we're seeing. Ran great. Top 2 finish. Just wasn't able to really keep up with Larson, but I wanted to shout out Bubba for a minute for that and just keep being himself, keep doing what he's doing, and I think good runs will follow. I think he's got a pretty good chance of making the playoffs this year. So just keep doing what you're doing, and it was really good to see. Reddick also with a third-place finish, so 23-11 as a whole, really ran strong. That was a shock. I wouldn't expect them to be that good at North Wilkesboro, but they were. Second and third for them, best of the rest. So that's a quick shout-out to 23-11 and what they're doing. They continue to improve. Reddick already with a win this year. Bubba keeps getting closer and closer, so I expect both of those cars to be in the playoffs this year. And really awesome seeing. Ty Gibbs, as a young driver, of course nobody had raced at North Wilkesboro in a Cup car, but I was impressed with him in the Open, to be honest with you. I know he had the best equipment, probably, but really ran good there in the Open, and that was really good to see, too. He's had a really quiet, good year. He's right on the verge of the playoffs also, so just want to give a shout-out to those 3 guys. They really jumped off the page at me this weekend. Now back to the Coke 600. And one thing that I really enjoy about the Coke 600 is all these patriotic paint schemes. I think NASCAR does probably the best job of honoring military personnel and as a sport. And that's awesome to see. I'm glad that they still do that, and I know they'll do that for years to come. And that's great to see. But I want to see a lot of red, white, and blue this weekend out at Charlotte, and I'm sure I will, especially on the cars. Y'all let me know which one's your favorite when you see them on track. Engage with me on socials, and I'll definitely get back with you. And speaking of engaging on socials, here is my question of the week. This one comes from a listener that sent it to me. And it is, who in NASCAR, past or present, would you like to meet that you haven't yet? Now, I've put a lot of thought into this one since I got it. And I think the answer is Dale Earnhardt Jr. I've really loved listening to his podcasts since he started doing it. And, he was the most popular driver for a long time. So I'd say it'd have to be Dale Earnhardt Jr. for all he's done for the sport, including bringing back North Wilkesboro. He was a big part in that. I'm sure it's hard to meet him now. He's got a lot going on. But I've met a lot of guys in NASCAR, and all pretty recently. And that's one thing that I really enjoy doing is meeting drivers, getting their autographs. But the one that I haven't yet that I would be Dale Earnhardt Jr. for sure. Honorable mention, I'll do one of those too. I think it'd be pretty cool to meet Carl Edwards. We just talked about him last week. I respect what he did in the sport. Also, as I'm sitting here looking at my Kurt Busch diecast that I have, I'd really like to meet him and get that signed. Which I've met him once before, but it was when I was little. I'd like to meet him again, get him to sign his Kansas race win from last year as Air Jordan car. I think that would be really cool. But number one, I'm going to go with Dale Earnhardt Jr. And hopefully I get a chance to meet him one day. That would be awesome, and an awesome car to add to the collection if I could get an autograph. So Dale Earnhardt Jr. is the answer. I hate to be a downer here, and this is going to be my last thing before I give my prediction. But I've got one last comment on recapping last week, and I know a lot of podcasts have talked about this in the NASCAR world, and I touched on this a little bit earlier with the tire situation, but if we're going to keep having a lot of short tracks on the schedule, and we should, because that's really good, right? Everybody loves short track racing. But with this next gen car, it hasn't been as good, if we're being honest. And I just want to say that some changes are going to have to be made for the short tracks to be as good as they were with the previous car. I think tire is the biggest one. You can talk about aero package. They made a slight tweak to the aero package this year. It's made it a little better, but not much. But I'm not savvy enough to give you answers, but I'll give you my opinion, and mine is softer tires. Tires that will wear out, and I think we will see that. But as we all know, and you can let me also know what you think about this, what are some things you think we could do to change up the short tracks, make them better, per se? I'm going to make a couple predictions here to end the pod. Charlotte this weekend. We got Xfinity. We got some Cup drivers in Xfinity. I'm going to go with a guy that I touched on a little bit earlier that's had a really good Cup year. This will be his first Xfinity Star of the Year in that number 19 Joe Gibbs Toyota. I'm taking Ty Gibbs to win the Xfinity race at Charlotte. Usually don't do a lot of Xfinity predictions. I think we're going to start doing more, but especially at a good track like Charlotte, want to get that in. I'm taking Ty Gibbs. I would watch for, Josh Berry, Kyle Busch, of course, is always going to be a threat in Xfinity, but it don't seem like his Kaulig car has been running that well this year. Usually when he's in the Xfinity series, he ran Gibbs. The switch to Chevy and Kaulig, he hasn't been running as good. I'm going to take Ty Gibbs to win the Xfinity race. Now, for the big one with all the marbles, the Coke 600. I think this is going to be a great race. I think there's going to be comers and goers. I really do, to be honest with you. I think the Chevys and Toyotas will be the best. I think they'll be up front the most. I could see Denny repeating. I just think, and I hope they prove me wrong, but I could see the pit crew costing, and it's going to be the longest race of the year, 4 stages instead of 3. Going to be a lot of pit stops, and I just don't think his pit crew has been consistent enough this year. Peoples who have, you got Larson, Byron, and Chastain. Also Suarez. His pit crew at Trackhouse, they've been good. Byron and Larson, you got to watch for them every week at this point. They're going to be up there. They're going to be fast. I think it would be too cliche to pick Larson after the tear he's been on. I think he'll run well, but I don't think he will win the Coke 600. I'm going to go with Ross Chastain. No, don't throw anything at me, please. Don't boo me through your radio, because you all know my feelings about him too, but I think he's due for a win. I think the speed he's got, he's been talked to by his owner about his aggression levels. I think he comes out with a win and gets a Coke 600 win. First one for Trackhouse, of course. I wouldn't count out Larson and Byron. It's hard to go against them, but I've already picked them and don't want to just be repetitive. I'm going to go with Ross Chastain to win the Coke 600. And I appreciate you all for listening once again. Send me your question of the week questions any way you want to. Twitter, Facebook, anywhere you want. I really love the fan engagement. Ask me questions about Charlotte, about the pod. And see you all next week, and I'll recap my fun adventures at Charlotte and hopefully watch a Denny dub. So we'll see you all next week.